So what I want to talk about today is evergreen stuff. I feel like I alluded to this a couple weeks ago when we talked about like things I'm talking about my clients with now. And I said, like, don't worry, I'll do a longer, deeper live stream on this and share a lot of thoughts. And so that's kind of what we're going to get into today is how to know if this is right for you, how to know if this is like your next best move. Like, what are the differences between having more of an evergreen model and more of a launch model? Like, what are the, intersections of that? Um, because I feel like this doesn't always get talked about enough. And I feel like what really made me want to do this the most, I think, is that I feel like everyone acts like this, like that's always the next step. Like if you've gotten to this point of your business, without a doubt, hands down, moving to an evergreen model is always the next step. And I just disagree with that. I don't think it's not a good step. I just don't think it's like the perfect step for everyone in every business. And so excuse me. I just want to talk about that and dive into that a little bit more because I think that it can get really confusing and I don't think a lot of people share the specifics of this or like the details behind it. So we're going to get into all of it today. So the first thing that I want to say is like, what are we talking about when we're talking about evergreen? So in case you're like, what does that even mean? So that would mean like you basically have something that's for sale all the time. It's not like open closed. It's not like, well, we're opening the door to this thing on this date and it closes on this date and you cannot buy this thing after X date, right? Like it's done in terms of like it's a cohort, it started, whatever. Um, you got me. So I think that part is really hey Rebecca, excited to hear more about the best way to do evergreen because I do think it's the best fit for my ADHD folks. Love it. Hey Julie. Um, so anyway, that's just the difference we're talking about is more of like there's a final date that you can get into the program or the thing, or like it's just always open. People can come and go kind of as they see fit. And I don't mean they can like leave anytime if you have a contract, but you get what I mean. Like it's like not like the entire cohort starts on August 4th and the entire cohort ends on December 4th. You get me. Um, which presents unique challenges, meaning that when you're just in a launch model like that, where the entire cohort starts August 4th, you have built in urgency. Like it's just like you sign up by this date or you don't get in, right? Like that is built in really naturally, I guess, to a model like that. With Evergreen, it's not naturally built in. So you have to think about other ways you're building this stuff in or other ways to get people saying yes really consistently when that's not just naturally there, I guess is how I would say it. Like, right with, again, this cohort starts August 4th. It's just naturally there. It's like not manufactured. You don't have to make it. Like, it's just like if you don't start August 4th, you can't start. Okay. All right. So, one of the things that I really like to look at if we're thinking about moving to an evergreen model, like let's say it's a course and you're used to like launching your course and you usually like start the course on X date and then the doors close and you're like, actually, why don't I just leave this course open all the time? The first thing I would be asking is, are your launch numbers in a good enough place to support moving to evergreen? So here's what I mean by that. Most of the time, because of some of the things we've already talked about, um, when you move evergreen, your conversion rate goes down. This isn't because you're bad or you're wrong or you're doing it wrong. Just naturally, when there's less of that launch momentum and the get in by this date, and there's like, this whole launch buildup, and you're talking about something endlessly, or like not endlessly, I guess that's the opposite point. You're talking about something really heightened for a few weeks, right? That typically converts better. There's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of buildup around it, there's a lot of true urgency that typically will have a higher conversion rate. Now, that does not mean it's better because if you're only doing that 3 times a year, even if you have a higher conversion rate, you might still have a better outcome doing it evergreen. But if you are not getting launch numbers that your business could support or sustain if they went down, that would be a problem. Does that make sense? Hey Emma, happy to have you here. Hey Mary. So let me give you an example. I'm trying to get like really clear here without going too in the weeds, but sometimes my brain gets in the weeds. So try to stick with me for a second. So let's say you're converting your launch at 8%. It's really good, right? So even if you went evergreen and say your conversion went down to 3 to 5%, like if we assumed like, okay, we're probably not going to get 8 on evergreen, but we're going to get 3 to 5%. And we did the math on that and we were able to say like, yeah, even if we spent X on ads per month, even if blah, 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 that would still shake out. That's a really good time to consider going evergreen. If on your launch, you're like, we're barely getting 3%. I'd be a little more hesitant to go evergreen because I would be like, well, if that went down, then we're talking 1 to 2%. Some businesses can have a funnel working off of 1 to 2%. Don't get me wrong, but you'd really have to do the math on that and be pretty conscious and careful of thinking about that move. Does that make sense? So the first thing is like, are we already at a point of pretty high performance where even if that performance went down a little bit, it would be okay? Almost every client I've ever had that has made that move was with the like knowing like, yes, it's probably going to go down, but the business can sustain it going down. Okay. I think that's really important to say because not enough people say that, and people will move evergreen. They'll see their conversion rate go down and then they'll be like, oh my gosh, this is so bad. Instead of like, oh my gosh, this is really normal. That's fine. I like should have planned for that. By the way, if you guys have questions as I go through all this, I do really good with like questions and specifics, hence the one-on-one coaching. So if you're like, hey, tell me this, or like answer this specific question for me, happy to. Okay, so that's the first thing. Like, do you have launch numbers? Okay, Mary says makes sense. Do you have launch numbers that support this? If you don't, that's your first problem to solve. I cannot stress that enough. So many people just want to make the jump and want to be like, oh, all the cool kids are like doing evergreen. And so I'm supposed to do that. I'm kidding. But you know what I mean? Like that pressure in our industry. And if you do not feel like your launch numbers are yet supporting that, please, please, please give yourself time to iterate that launch. There is no downside to that for you. There's no shame in that game. Like looking at the data and working the numbers and getting them to a point where you feel comfortable going to that next step is so important and so valid. The only time I would tell you that that didn't matter is like, if you already weren't getting like a significant portion of your income from that and you really didn't care. Like if you're like, I just really don't want to launch this program, it's not a significant portion of my income. And so it kind of doesn't matter what it does in terms of performance on Evergreen. I'm willing to iterate that, totally fine. But if this is like a core program and a core piece of your income, it's much better to get that doing well from a launch perspective instead of putting yourself in this really difficult position where you're really like taking them down, right? Taking the numbers down when the numbers aren't where you want them to be. Like that is so working against you just to like call it evergreen. Do you know what I mean? Okay, real talk is conversion numbers, like from how many people I email or what? Okay, great question, Rebecca. So typically when we're talking conversion numbers, it's from how many people have joined your warm-up event. So if you're doing a webinar or a challenge, or you did a masterclass or anything like that. So it's typically from how many people enter that. So like, let's say you have 1,000 people in your masterclass and then you're converting at 5%, right? So you're getting 50, is that right? Yeah, 50 people from that. Does that make sense? So it's not like your total list. Total list, we would expect much lower conversion rates, like, overall. And really, we want to be looking at like from that pool of warm people that have just been to a warm-up event with you. Mary said, I'm someone I'm coaching. I so get that. Yes. I'm like, ask me a question. I feel like I'm a generator, like so through and through in that way too. But yeah, I think this is something that doesn't get said a lot. So like if there's no reason to do that, if it's going to hurt your business overall and the business isn't in a place to see that go down and have this be okay. This applies to like a paid workshop, right? Yes. I would say typically I would expect a higher conversion rate from a paid workshop, but yes, absolutely. So overall, that's important to know, right? Because you don't want to assume that those are going to be the same. I think a lot of people go into turning their program evergreen, assuming they're going to get the exact same conversion rate as a launch, and then they get really, really frustrated. Like, do not assume that it is going to go down. It will naturally go down. Another thing I really pay attention to, and I'm not trying to say this is true across the board, but I do feel like it's really relevant to talk about here, is it really also kind of matters if your offer has its own urgency associated with it, meaning like, this is always a good one because, been there in a big way. But like, I had a client that did something related to um, children's sleep, not like sleep training, but something related to children's sleep, right? That has so much built-in urgency, right? Like I'm been there. My son didn't sleep for 2 years, like up in the middle of the night scrolling that. Like I don't want to wait for a fucking cohort to open or whatever. I'm like, take my money now. I have a very urgent and pressing problem, right? Like we do want to consider that sometimes when we think about Evergreen is, does your audience have an urgent and pressing problem that adds some of their own urgency to it? I'm not saying that's the only way to do Evergreen, just to be really clear, but I am saying that that does make it easier, right? Where someone else might have a very far off problem. Like I'm just going to use another example of this. And like, if this is you, I do not mean you can't go Evergreen, but you get me. Like say your course more teaches people how to like create like invest for their 401k for retirement, right? That would be a little harder. You'd have to really build in quite a bit of urgency in your evergreen funnel to do that because there is not as much built-in current urgency. Like that's very much a future thing and a future problem. Now, something might happen where like, they have a friend who passed away and like hadn't gotten them their spouse set up for retirement. And now they feel a lot more urgency. Like there's all these elements, right? But typically when you have an offer that has some kind of like urgent nature to it, it definitely is going to more naturally be easier to transition to Evergreen. Again, doesn't mean the rest can't, but you have to know in your head, oh, my offer probably isn't the most naturally suited to Evergreen. So I need to really build in a lot of urgency to this process if I want it to do really well, because there is not natural urgency built in around the offer, right? Rebecca said, right, my clients don't want to wait and they forget about me if I make them wait, right? And so that's part of it too. Sometimes they're like, I want this now. And if I can't get this from you now, I'll go get it from someone else. Okay, well, then that really starts to make sense. Or sometimes it's like, no, 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 I really want this from you specifically, and I'm okay to wait. Like that's kind of what my business is more built on in terms of the wait list. People are like, I really want to work with you as a one-on-one coach. So I'm willing to be on a wait list for that. Whereas somebody else might be in a totally different position where they're like, no, 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 like it's with the sleep thing. Like if they don't get it from me, they're going to someone else because it's that urgent, right? Mary says, does it make sense to start off with an evergreen system like for a low ticket offer or product without launching it so many times first? Launching can be so exhausting. Personally, I always prefer to start with a launch only because in my opinion and experience, you get quicker information, and quicker information usually leads to better outcomes. So here's what I mean by that. If you're like, okay, I'm just going to start off here Evergreen, for this course or whatever, how long is it going to take to get 100 people through that funnel? Versus if you were like, I'm going to do a 2-week launch, could you get 100 people through that funnel in 2 weeks? Like that's the difference. Sometimes it's like, oh, okay, if we can get 100 people through in 2 weeks, we get a lot of really good data. We can actually see what the holes are. We can patch them more quickly and then get better outcomes long term. Now, if it's like a really low ticket product or something like that, obviously most of those make sense for Evergreen. So that's totally okay. But if you're talking about me more of like a core program in your business, I typically do think it's worth it to launch first. Um, if it's just like a low ticket lead in offer or something like that, that's not what I mean. But if it's more of a core program in your business, it typically is really helpful to get quick information. Like it's worth that 2 week, of intensity sometimes to be like, oh, now I know everything I could want to know there and go fix it. Where sometimes if it's over like a long period, you're like, well, but there was a holiday in there, but this, and does this count? And should I wait for that? Like, can just take a really long time to feel like you have full data that you can like trust and understand and like really build off of. Um, Here for ideas around applications or examples regarding one-on-one. Okay, on that. I love that. Let me actually just make a note of that on my notes so I don't forget that. I will share that for sure. Thank you for saying that. Okay, so here's the next thing I want to talk about that I feel like people don't. So now that we are kind of clear on that, like, hey, there might be some offers that are more suited to it, and you probably do want to be at a certain point before you move there. That's like our foundation. The next thing I want to talk about is it's just a different way to think about business. I think some people are very well suited to this way to think about business. And that's why you have these people that are like so diehard for Evergreen and they fucking love it. And it makes so much sense to them and it works so well for them. And then you have other people that are just not suited to this thought process or this kind of way of operating. And it's why they can find it so hard. So this isn't necessarily there's a right way, there's a wrong way, but this is more like there really is a personal preference for like how you want to operate your business. So let me give you some examples. If you run more of a launch model, it's a little bit more about like creating that hype and excitement and like really like getting like out there and in there and like you love talking about that thing for a few weeks and you love being really in it and you kind of love that idea of like a targeted sprint and you really love being able to like pour your energy into that, right? In Evergreen, it's sort of the exact opposite. It's almost like you're just making these micro tweaks all the time. Um, and again, some people love that and some people don't, right? It might be as simple as being like, oh, okay, interesting. Our landing page conversion went down a little bit. Should we tweak the headline a little bit? Should, like, let's try that and see what happens. Oh, interesting. Our show up rates declined over the last 2 months. Maybe we should change the bonus we're giving for that and rework that. Like it looks like these really microscopic tweaks over time. Now, for some people, that feels super exciting. They love getting in the weeds. They love testing new things. They love making these micro tweaks and they love seeing it all add up. For other people, sustaining that like little tweak over little tweak for a year is absolutely unbearable to them. Like it literally feels like nails on a fucking chalkboard. Like it kills them. Like they want to just go launch and like try a bunch of stuff and see what works and see what lands and they want to do it and they want to do it fast and they want to get out. Right? Other people are like, yeah, I'll tweak this same funnel for the next year and see what happens. Like it is such a different mentality. And you really have to want to do that work. Where a lot of people go wrong with Evergreen is they really believe it, set it, and forget it. And they think if they just move something that performed well in a launch to Evergreen, set it, forget it, that it will just perform well forever. And that's not when people are having success with Evergreen funnels, that is not what they're doing. They're paying attention. They are looking at the data. They are datas. They're making tweaks. They are like in it, invested in it, right? That's how you get it to keep performing really well over time. For almost every client I have that has an Evergreen funnel, regularly they're going to me, hey, here's what's happening in it. Here's what our numbers are. Here's our dashboard. Here's our spreadsheet. Let's look at these. What else could we be doing? And we're always going, oh, the funnel needs a little bit more traffic, or oh, actually, like let's tweak the checkout page. Hey, when's the last time we've updated testimonials and case studies? Should we go be putting those into this because this isn't performing as well? Like it's, it's a lot of tweaking. And again, you kind of have to know yourself a little bit of like, does that feel exciting to you? Do you like the kind of like art mixed with science of that? Or does everything about your body hate that? Like, are you like, I cannot imagine tweaking the same funnel for the next year. That would absolutely slay me. Like, there's no way. Okay, good. Then like Evergreen might not be it for you. And I think it's just so important that we acknowledge like there are just different ways to run a business. And there are things that we are maybe like best suited for versus least suited for. For me personally, I am not well suited to the launch model business. I don't like that. I really like consistency. I like stability. I like doing a little bit at a time. I love micro tweaks. I fucking like, it's so juicy to me, right? For my personality. I do really well with that. Doesn't mean I don't like helping on launches or anything like that, but I mean me as a business owner running my business, like I am not well suited to the launch model. I've tried it a couple times. I never enjoy it. I really don't. And equally, I have some clients who are so goddamn good at it and they enjoy it so much and they are lit up during a launch and it's like the most fun getting to like plan for them with it and watch them and watch their creativity come out and all of that. Like there is no right or wrong. You can have $1 million business plus doing both of them, but you kind of have to know yourself. Like that's sort of what some of this comes down to, right? And I think what can be hard is we hear someone raving about Evergreen and we go, oh, well, fuck, I guess that's what I should be doing. Instead of being like, oh, are they raving about it? Because that's really, really well suited to how they think about business, how they operate, how they're wired. Like that does matter. Um, Mary said, I get the idea of lots of people having Evergreen to set it and forget it and start collecting the money. That's often how it's marketed, though. Exactly. Exactly. You love consistency. Right. So, like, that might be really attractive, but the set it and forget it thing is not, at least not long term, right? Like, you could probably set it and forget it for a few months and stuff like that. But if you really want that to keep performing well, you really want to keep optimizing for that, you're going to have to scale ads. You're going to have to, tweak. You're going to have to learn from it. Like, or you will at some point see a declining value. And so, that's something to think about. Rebecca said, okay, so my personality is probably more launch, but I feel like my clients want Evergreen. So what you might think about with that, Rebecca, then is like, if you're like, oh my gosh, I could see how I could crush it at launch. That's so aligned to my personality. What can I give them in between to get them really excited for when I do launch? Do I have like small products they can buy all the time? And then they're really excited when I launch. So it's like, you can hybrid some of this. Another thing a lot of people do, I have quite a few of my clients do this, is we have an evergreen funnel, but we also do like live launches for it too, if that makes sense. So it's like there's an evergreen funnel, but then we do like a live launch with special bonuses or like a flash sale with a special discount, or we live launch twice a year with like an actual cohort of coaching associated with it. So like you could do a little bit of both too. It's not like I'm kind of talking about this like these are binary and they're not necessarily. Like we can get to that too. Like there are ways to like have a hybrid approach to this for sure. But like it really does matter how you like to do it. So again, for you, if you're like, well, maybe I could build out an evergreen thing, but then I still launch it 4 times a year for my clients or whatever. That could work super, super well because you're getting to show up in kind of like your best arena and your brilliance, but you're getting to like warm them up along the way. Mary said, I like the idea of knowing what your personality is and building a system that aligns with that. Totally. I really feel like that is such, I mean, it sounds so cheesy, right? But it's like such the hack to business that people do not talk about enough of like, and also it's confusing, right? Because like, even if you have a really launch based kind of personality, of course, the idea of having something that you set and forget and it just churns money for you is attractive, right? So it's like, that's kind of hard too. Like you have to like acknowledge that, right? Like, of course, like even everyone's personality wants that, you know what I mean? So it can be like, it can feel hard to make that decision, but it's also just like, we have to get behind like, what's just the marketing of it, you know what I mean? And like, for Evergreen, I think that's that. Like, it is a system up that brings you in money, but you can't forget that system, just like you can't forget any system in your business. If you want it to work, the system works because you're using the system. The system works because you're tweaking the system. You know what I mean? Um, Rebecca said, so if someone finds me, they can hop in, cool, but I can do all the tweaks and do a launch for myself. Totally. Yeah. Like, and you might be like, okay, if they really want it, they're going to buy it then when they find me. But what I'm going to do is get them really excited to buy it during a launch. So like you could do like very low lift effort on Evergreen and maybe you just have sales trickle in here and there. And your biggest lift is on launch, right? That instead of like, so obviously what a lot of people do too is they'll put in, they'll try to like replicate a live launch with Evergreen by putting in like a deadline funnel and different things like that. And so maybe that's not what you need to do there. Like maybe you need to be like, cool, their own urgency will create the purchase on Evergreen that can trickle in when it does. And then I'm best suited to do a launch. That's what I'm going to do. Right. Hey, Leah, 100% love. Yes. So this is really like important to continue to think about is like, it's not like you have to pick one or the other. Obviously, there are plenty of hybrids, but I do think you have to, one, know your numbers, and two, know yourself, right? And then I think three, you also have to test it enough to know what really works. Like I've had some clients where they had a launch model, then we moved Evergreen and it was okay. And like we really optimized the shit out of it. And like they could have probably kept it running like that. But the truth is, their audience just always responded a lot better to a launch model. And so we moved back to that because like the numbers were just almost unbeatable. That also is like normal business. Like this shit drives me crazy. I feel like a lot of people in our space would like almost make that a failure or something where it's like, oh no, like you should be able to figure it out no matter what. And I just don't agree with that personally. Like I just agree with like you can decide like, hey, the trade-off is still worth it for me, even if launch numbers are unbeatable. Like I just prefer an evergreen model. Great. Or you can be like, actually, I don't like it doesn't matter that much to me. Like I didn't mind launching and I don't mind Evergreen, but if launching is going to get me 2 times better results, I'm like willing to do that. You have to be willing to go, what is my audience telling me over and over again? And can I fucking pay attention to that? And then can I just make a choice around that that serves me? It doesn't mean like what they're telling you, you have to do no matter what. But your audience and your business are always talking to you and they're always telling you things. So I'll give you like a specific client example. Again, she was had a launch model. We moved Evergreen in her launch model. She converts really, really well. She was typically converting at 10%, like always. We moved Evergreen. It was 3%, which is good. Like there's nothing wrong with that. But it's a bit lower ticket. So 3% with what her ads costs were and the lower ticket nature of her program, like it was fine, but it was like in terms of the revenue looked good, right? But in terms of like profitability on 3% at those ads costs, which were optimized and everything, like it just wasn't as great as she had wanted it to be. And it was really hard for her to justify staying with that when she knew she could go back to a launch model at 10%. And so that's what she ended up doing. And it's worked really well for her. And she's really someone that's pretty good at kind of moving between the two and making it work for her and her personality. But what was really good about it is like she didn't take any of that personally. Like she wasn't like, oh my gosh, like my evergreen sucks or they're not buying or whatever. She was just like, for my audience and the particular problem that they have and how I market and how they relate to me, I actually really see how it just does perform better live. And she's someone who's incredibly magnetic and very compelling. And so she just sells so well live that like it just makes sense. And I also have a client who had the exact opposite thing happen, which is kind of crazy. I've not seen this quite as much. But her offer performs significantly better on Evergreen, but similarly to what we were talking about earlier, her offer has such a built-in urgency to it in terms of like the problem they're experiencing. So Like, it depends is always the answer. Yeah, Manali said the most classic and always true Lacey advice. Always. Always is it depends. But the thing that matters here is knowing all of this nuance for your business. What's so hard about our space, and the reason I like titled this, Evergreen might not be your next move, is because most people are just hearing what other people are saying. They're going, oh, all of these people are saying Evergreen is great. I should just go to that. Okay. But what is your business saying? What is your audience saying? What is your data telling you? If you can take that, it will be so much easier to go decide. If you're just listening to other people and you don't even know what your data is telling you, like that's what makes it really hard. And like I think in the email I said something about like what makes this sustainable and like shifts in Evergreen that make it sustainable. And that is the shift too, right? Like you keep listening to your business and you take a mentality of like, I want to keep tweaking this. So for some of my clients who end up really loving Evergreen, what they love about it is they're like, oh, I almost can't lose because I just listen to the data. I make a tweak, I see what it says, I optimize for it, and I improve and improve. Like that kind of can't lose mentality of like, oh, it's always going to tell me something. I can always act on that, can be really attractive, right? But it takes a certain amount of patience and it takes really letting go of a lot of the shiny object stuff. And it takes really listening in to your own business and what it's telling you. And that is sometimes really, really difficult to do. So, like, again, it depends. Like there is a strong upside, right? And I feel like a lot of my clients think they won't like that at first. And then once they get into it, they're like, wait, I actually really like how in control I feel here. I feel like I can look at my own business. I feel like I can learn from it. I feel like I can test what it's telling me. Like I really feel in control and empowered in a way that I haven't before, which can be so great. Because like with launches, the kind of like unfortunate part of it is like you can and should be tweaking during a launch, but obviously you can only do that so much. And so sometimes you're waiting to test your theories until the next launch, which can be a little bit more frustrating in some ways too. So a lot of my clients really end up loving the idea that like we can figure something out, tweak it. Like this just literally happened with one of my clients. She was like, hey, something really like odd is happening. Like my OTO, which is like a one-time offer, my OTO is selling like her conversion rate on that was so insane. It was like almost absurd. She was like, but my numbers have really gone down on like webinar sales. Can we look at what's going on? So we looked at what's going on. We did all of these things. We decided on these tweaks. We just made the tweak and she messaged me afterwards and she was like, so interesting. Like, I think our hunch was really confirmed. I actually do think XYZ happened. I'm already seeing the numbers increase. That's so great, blah, blah. So within the span of like 2 weeks, she was able to be like, here's a problem, make a tweak, see if it worked. There's something really attractive about that. Where if it's a launch, sometimes it's like, here's a problem, did the best we could tweaking it in a launch. Now we'll see what happens 3.5 months from now, right? So there's just benefits and trade-offs to all of it, truly. But the way it all gets simple and sustainable is like you learn from your business and you make adjustments, right? Where Evergreen becomes so difficult, like so difficult, is when you're always starting over. Like when you're like, okay, the Evergreen funnel is not converting, wipe the map clean with it. That part will never build you a successful business. It will absolutely make you fucking insane. And be completely unsustainable. And again, I think this is sometimes why Evergreen gets a bad rap because people are like, oh my God, it's so much work. It's so intense. And it is really intense on the build part. Like, I think you guys will hear that. I can't remember what episode of the podcast we're on, but I feel like Jackie really hits this point where she's like, wow, this initial part is really intense. And then she kind of hits the other side where she's like, wow, I can see how I just did all this work. And if I just keep tweaking this work, it like works. Hopefully I just didn't give away too much of the podcast, but you get me. Like there's like, it's like, you know, it's like very intense for a little bit and then it gets easier. And that's kind of like a launch to a certain extent. Like it's really intense for a period of time and then it slows down. But ultimately they are quite different in terms of like how you're responding to things, how you're thinking about things, what rates you're going to get, what you can expect from it, how quickly you can make tweaks, how quickly you can learn from it. Like all of that varies so much in all of this. And what I don't think enough people explain or tell you is that piece, right? They're just like, this is great, moving on. Like, no, this is great with a lot of pieces incorporated into it. Actually is pretty strategic. It actually is pretty data focused, etc. Let me think of what else I wanted to share on this. Oh, Nova had asked earlier. Oh, okay. I have two things I want to share. So Nova had asked earlier about like applications or one-on-one. So some people will launch one-on-one and some people will treat one-on-one as evergreen, right? Personally, I guess I do a little bit of both if you think about it, right? Because I treat my wait list as evergreen. I talk about it all the time. I'm always getting people on it, but then I like open intensives or spots at any given time when we have openings. Duh. So mine has kind of become a hybrid over time, but even when I wasn't full, I've always really treated one-on-one as evergreen, aside from occasionally I've done these sort of like flash like bonuses when I like wanted to sell out or something. So I think I talked about this another time, but like there was one time where I think I had like 2 or 3 spots left to fill in one-on-one coaching. And I asked Megan, my OBM at the time, if I could include like 4 hours of her time for each person or 5 or whatever, 5 hours of her time for each person with them. And so I did like a bonus with it. So that was sort of like a quick little launch of like, hey, we have 3 spots left. They come with like, X amount of hours with Megan, those disappear when they disappear kind of thing. So you can add these sort of like little pockets of like, oh, here's a bonus or here's this. But personally, I love to keep one-on-one more evergreen in the sense that it's not like I have 6 one-on-one clients starting on X date for a few reasons. One, I think it's really intense to onboard a lot of one-on-one clients at once. 2, I think it's really hard to have a lot of one-on-one clients roll off at once. And so sometimes there's something really nice. Like a lot of times what I would tell people is when you're thinking about building out one-on-one, think about like, can you get like, 2 to 3 clients a month and build from there. The hard part, however you want to say that about that, is you have to find ways to keep talking about it and making it exciting. So I've done that in so many different ways, like client lessons that I do on Instagram, like always talking about clients, always talking about what's going on with clients, always tying it back to one-on-one, but you have to be like quite engaged with, in my opinion, with the thing that is evergreen, because you have to be talking about it a lot. So even my clients that have evergreen webinar funnels, they need to be talking about that webinar all the time, right? So we're always finding like, oh, what testimonials can we share? What can we share about what's going on in the group or the community? What wins can we share? What reasons can we give that they want to go watch this training, etc. You really have to be quite engaged with the offer. I think that, again, sometimes it seems like with Evergreen, you could just like back away slowly, like drop it, back away slowly. And I've seen the opposite. Like when my clients consistently talk about the thing that they have on Evergreen, it performs better. I mean, this is like not magic. I'm not telling you guys anything that is not really obvious, but it's true. So if you're saying like one-on-one is my thing, you have to be thinking about, how do I talk about that thing all the time? Can I talk about what's happening with one-on-one clients? Can I talk about conversations I'm having? Can I share testimonials? Can I share wins? Like really make that the staple, but you could apply that to anything that you have evergreen. Like evergreen doesn't mean you ignore it. It just means people can buy it at any time. So if they can buy it at any time, right? You really want to be pushing to that. Or if you have a specific funnel with like, a front end starting point for that, like you always want them to watch a training first or whatever, like you want to be sharing that really consistently. So you want to pick something where you're like, I feel confident that I'm going to be able to share on this topic really consistently, really, engage with it. because that's when your audience is going to be really engaged with it. Like they have to hear about this all the time. Keep seeing it as the solution, because where a lot of this other stuff with launching goes well for people is they're always launching a new offer. So there's always like newness and excitement and like, ooh, what's she talking about? Oh, what's that kind of stuff there? And so you have to find ways to do that where it's like, oh, what's happening with your one-on-one clients? Oh, what one-on-one results are you getting? Oh, like, you get what I'm saying? Like you're kind of, I don't like competing is not the right word, but like you're kind of competing against this excitement of like, oh, someone that always has something new and different. And some of the ways you can do that is by making sure you're talking about it really frequently, making sure you're creating social proof, making sure you're doing a really, really good job of like pulling results, pulling testimonials, pulling out conversations and talking about them a lot, because that's really what's going to push people back to that. And it really does make a big difference. Like one of my clients, we literally can see when she's on stories and talking about getting people into her webinar really frequently, like the numbers go crazy. When she drops that, even for a little bit of time, it drops off, right? And she does other marketing too, but like that particularly seems to make a really big difference for her. Again, I'm not saying this is for everyone, but this is why that whole like set it and forget it mentality gets really like is really not the full picture, I guess is how I want to say it. Because like, yes, maybe you set that funnel and forgot it, but like you have to go talk about it all the time still. You have to be the marketer for that all the time still. You have to be on it, maybe even more than you would in a launch. Like actually, I will say that you have to be on it way more than you would in a launch, because in a launch, you're doing it for like this sprint period of time. Where in Evergreen, it's all the time. So you have to find new and engaging ways to talk about it a lot. And you can't expect like your audience to just know that or just be like almost for them to be thinking about it more than you are, right? Yay, I'm so glad that was helpful. Kate said, just got here, excited to rewatch this because I just reworked my offer structure to not be constantly creating new hot in the moment offers and fill out an actual coaching practice with more long-term relationships. I love that. Yes, definitely go back and watch, Kate, and see what you think. Because I think a lot of what I was saying about like, it just depends. And like, there's, benefits and trade-offs to each, I think will be really helpful. It sounds like you probably already considered a lot of those in your shift. Hey, Allison, thank you. So anyway, like it really is just a totally different mentality. And it doesn't mean the mentality doesn't have these same business foundations or principles of like warm your audience, that build relationships, whatever. But it is different in terms of like how you're thinking about things, how you're approaching things, what needs your time, what needs your energy, if you're, what tweaks you're making and how often. And so you really want to know that going into it and decide that that's the game that you want to play and that's the business model that's right for you. Because if you're only going into it because you think you're going to like whatever, print money without having to do anything, like obviously that's not what's going to happen. And you're going to feel really, really frustrated. And you're going to probably put in a lot of work and then not see it come to fruition. This is the number one thing I see that people do is they'll build out this whole funnel and then they'll go, oh, the funnel didn't work, and they'll fucking walk away. And you're like, oh my God, you literally just got to the starting line. Like the building all of that out, you're behind the starting line. Like you're training for the race. Right? When that goes live, you just started at the starting line. Now you have a whole race to run, right? And a lot of people will stop right there. Like they'll make it go live, they'll test it for, a few weeks or whatever, and then they're like, nope, the funnel didn't work. Funnels don't work for me. My audience doesn't like funnels. And you're like, you barely made it past the starting line. And I get it because all the training, so to speak, leading up to it is intensive and it feels really hard. But you have to want to get way past that starting line. Like you're in an Ironman, okay? Like there are many races to still race and be won. And like my ex-husband used to do Ironman, so this is my brain. But in an Ironman, such micro tweaks make such a big difference, right? It's like, did you take a gel at mile, whatever? Or did you do like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the bike? Like really micro shit like that makes such a big difference, like your overall time and your ability to finish. And it's the same thing here. And if you like that, it's going to feel really exciting and it's going to feel really, what's the word? dare I say fun, we'll go there. It's going to feel really fun to do that. If you keep trying to do that and you realize like that is not how your brain works, that is not how you want to run your business, it's going to feel really hard. Nova says in terms of Evergreen 101, I want to double down on messaging around the current season or annual, which is holidays. Yeah, that's great too. Like you're creating urgency based on something specific, right? Like you're saying like a seasonal holiday or whatever. So it's like there is urgency because this thing is happening right now, which is really helpful with evergreens to have these things that kind of create their own urgency and push that forward. Obviously, again, this is not what this conversation is about. You can also like replicate urgency with something like deadline funnel and all of that kind of stuff. But I mean, like that's really helpful to do. Like most of my clients that have evergreen funnels do some version of that, but it's still not going to feel exactly the same as a launch. But when you have these opportunities to add it in or do like a flash sale because of the holiday or whatever, it can be really helpful. Oh, yay, I'm glad you liked it, Adrian. Yes, you just got to the starting line. But nobody, like, none of us like that. Like, nobody wants to be like, oh my God, I just did all this work and now I'm just at the starting line. But that the reality of it is that's kind of how that works. So Evergreen is great. I think it is amazing. I've seen so many businesses have so much success with it, and it's not better. Like that's the thing we have to let go of in our industry. It's not better, or it doesn't mean you've like reached the pinnacle of business ownership in a different way, or it doesn't always ensure you're going to have better results. It's literally just a different business, just like anything else. Just a different way of like selling your offers, just like anything else. There's no like hierarchy, which again, I feel like gets positioned a lot almost. And I just really wanted to say, like, it's really just about deciding what your business is telling you, what your audience is telling you, what your offer is best suited for, what you and your personality are best suited for, and then building around that. When you do that, it's really, really hard not to get good results. When you're missing some of those elements and you're like just doing it because so-and-so said to do it, or you're doing it even though your business numbers don't really support that, and like that's when it gets really hard. And you're going to be really quick to go, funnels just don't work for me. Evergreen just doesn't work for me. And again, you may come to a point where you're like, actually launching just does work better for me. But typically it's not because Evergreen couldn't work. You're literally just kind of neutrally comparing this potential number to this potential number and deciding what works better for your business. So a lot of it comes back to data. A lot of it comes back to knowing yourself, knowing your business, knowing your audience, like anything else. So I hope this is helpful. I hope it was, informative. Again, I think it's so easy with all the marketing in our space to think one thing's right and one thing's wrong, or one thing's better and one thing's worse. And it's just all different. And it's about what works for you, what feels best for you. And ultimately like what supports, yes, the numbers, but also the type of business you want to run every day, the things you like doing, the places you want to spend your time, like all of that. Oh, I love that, Nova. She said, fir tree or apple tree, both are beautiful and fruitful. So good. Yes, it's just different. Okay, I will be back next week. I don't remember what I will be talking about then, but I will be back. It will be lovely. And yeah, thank you guys as always for being here. And if you watch the replay and have any questions, let me know. All right, bye y'all.